need these supplies. You do need your science notebook. In fact, I would recommend you open that up right now, and you open up to the page on taxonomy. I would recommend you review that right now because we're having a quiz. All right, so, also ensure that you have your textbook. We are going to be using your textbook quite a bit today. So make sure you have that out. Now then, as you're getting your supplies out, I'll get the screen turned on for you. Now then, here's what class will look like. We're going to review just a little bit. We'll review taxonomy just quickly. I'll give you a little bit of time in your notes to review that as well. And then, I love this next part. I'm going to quiz your brains to see if you got it, to see if you know taxonomy, to see if it is indeed in your mind. So, we will have that quiz. That's the second thing, okay? Now, then notice after that, we're going to get into scientific naming. So we'll add a new entry into our notebooks. We'll learn about scientific naming. And then, we're going to get into some problems. I'll share a really short, sweet video with you. It's about 5 minutes long. But then, there are 3 problems with taxonomy. We're going to discover what the 3 problems are, okay? And then after that, I'll introduce your homework for you so you know exactly what to do tomorrow to be successful for home. All right, your quiz, you have to know the 7 levels of taxonomy, and you have to be able to know the 2 domains. Okay, so here are the levels of taxonomy. There are 7 levels that we learned about initially, right? And then we added an 8th. So, remember yesterday we classified Leo the lion up here, didn't we? Now pay close attention because remember, this is what you're about to be quizzed over. So the largest classification is what, everyone?
Domain.
A domain is your largest. Remember, you have 2 domains that you need to be aware of and know about. In fact, on your quiz, you do need to be able to describe them. So please review that in your notes. We have 2. Now, Leo the lion here, this lion is eukaryotic. What in the world does that mean about his cells? Davis, do you remember?
They are more complex.
Ah, they are more complex, aren't they? So this lion's cells are made up of more parts and pieces. So he is eukaryotic. Now notice, 8.7 million eukaryotic species in the world. About. That's a lot, isn't it? But then we go down to a smaller level. We go down to kingdom. Show me with your fingers, how many kingdoms are there? Ah, you guys got it. 6. 6 kingdoms. Now this lion is just happens to be in the animal kingdom, right? You can see here we went from almost 9 million species in this domain down to 1.5 million. Okay. But then after that, we go even smaller, don't we? We go into the phylum, into the class, order, family, genus, and the last one, the absolutely smallest level of classification is species. How many of you guys think that you could put this in order, in proper order, from largest to smallest, no problem? Sweet. Then you're ready for the quiz. So you'll have to put it in proper order and know the 2 domains. So go ahead and spend a little bit of time in your notebook reviewing that. And in just a moment, I'll pass out your quiz, and you'll take the quiz over this. For those of you who are joining us virtually, your quiz is attached. It's simply attached in the assignments category. So you find your quiz, complete it, and turn it in to me online.
I'm
Thank
pretty
you
sure
guys.
they cannot hear anything.
This is the front side of your quiz. Just go ahead and write your name on it, please. What you're going to do is put these in order, but you have some clues. But then you also have a little bit of work to do on the back side of your quiz as well. Okay? So let's all look right up here so we understand the directions. Now it says here, please place the traditional classification system in proper order by writing the taxons, that means the levels, on the left into the correct order. Now you have a really big clue for you. You have Panthera onca already classified for you. So up here at the top, thank you, you have Animalia. So, okay, which group would that be? Now don't shout it out, don't say it out loud. You gotta think, where or what is an amelia. Then you look at your options over here, pick out the best option, and write it on your line. Then you do the same thing with chordata, mammalia, and so on, all the way down to the specific species, Pantheronca. So you will use all of these one time. You place them in proper order from largest to smallest, and then on the back side of your quiz, you have work to do as well. Just a little bit though. On the back side, you will write a brief description of the 2 domains. Does everyone understand that?
Do we have to write the names?
Yes. So on the back side, you have to write down the 2 domains and briefly describe them on the back side of your little quiz sheet. Yes?
Does spelling count for the 2 domains?
No, I will not count on for spelling. All right, so everyone go ahead and quietly get started. Give it your best. Do incredible, because you are incredible. All right, now then, as soon as you get your notebooks ready, let's head to our textbook. Remember I said we would be using our textbook today, okay? So you need to head to page number 42. So go ahead and get those notebooks ready and head to page 42 in the textbook, please. We're going to use the textbook to help us learn about how scientists name living organisms.
42?
Yes, page 42 in your textbook, please. Now on page 42, you see the title, Scientific Names. It introduces us to a problem that could actually happen in naming organisms. You see, we always have a common name. Like this one here, the Pantheronca, we commonly call that the Black Panther. It's a common name, right? But some organisms have the same common name. So let's see an example from your textbook. So, everyone should be following along. You're on page 42 under Scientific Names. Let's begin. What I'll do is I'll read for you, and I'll occasionally stop and pause. When I stop and pause, you guys fill in the word, okay? So that means everyone should be following along in the text. What is a buffalo? Now, many North Americans like you think of the shaggy, grazing animal, more properly called a bison. Now, these animals, as you know, once covered the Great Plains and provided food and hides for generations of Indians and Native Americans. On the other hand, to an what?
African.
To an African, buffalo are dangerous wild cattle that live in forests and along rivers. In Asia, most buffalo are domesticated cows used to pull plows through flooded rice paddies. Sound confusing? It would be if we did not use scientific naming. In reality, these 3 types of buffalo are all in the cow family, but each belongs to a different genus. Scientists do not use common names such as buffalo, basically because they don't want to mix organisms up. So you can see why we have scientific naming, right? If I said buffalo, then we would have people thinking 3 different organisms. So you can see why we have scientific naming. There are a couple things you need to know about scientific naming. Let's write those details in our notes. You need to know that every organism, every type of species is given its own unique scientific name. So let's all make sure and add this into our notes. So every individual species gets its own scientific name. Black panther, the 3 types of buffalo. Scientists even give us a scientific name as humans.
Humanus? Oh.
So every species gets its own scientific name. Now, you need to know some things about this naming system. You, for example, probably have 3 names. Some of you might even have 4 names. I have 3. Mine's Eric Quentin Whitaker. I have 3 names. But in the scientific naming, we always use 2. Every species gets 2. So 2 names to give it that scientific name for a scientist to identify it. Now, in this 2-name system, there are 4 things that you really need to know. In fact, we're going to learn them first, and then we're going to practice scientifically naming organisms or species. So you can see here in this 2-name system, the black panther gets 2 names. Panthera onca is its scientific name. 2 names, right? So how do we give each organism its own scientific name? All right, if you're ready for the next slide, if you're ready for that information, give me a thumbs up. Oh, nice. I'll make sure we're all getting these notes. All right, here we go. This 2-name system has these qualities. First of all, each species gets a first name. Just like I get the first name Eric. Well, the first name in scientific naming is the genus. The genus of that organism in its classification. So in our example of Panthera onca, you see its genus is Panthera. So its first name is Panthera. Is the P in Panthera capitalized or is it lowercase?
Capitalized.
Ah. In scientific naming, we always capitalize the first scientific name. Now, I think some of you may have had a capitalization quiz today in English. Did your English teacher throw in some scientific names?
No.
Whew. It's a good thing, right? Because you always capitalize the first name in a scientific name, but the second name is different. Ooh. So the second name, who can tell me what is the second name in the scientific naming process? Owen? Ah, the species, right? So the second name will always be the species, the specific species, and you can see that. The species is onca. So our black panther, its first name is Panthera, its second name is onca. Now, is onca capitalized? Uh-oh. My second name is Quentin, but it's capitalized. Uh-oh. But in scientific naming, it's not, is it? So in scientific naming, we do not capitalize the second name of a species. Now there's a third thing you need to know about scientific naming. When we scientifically name an organism, we always slant the letters. Who in here has worked with Word, and you've worked on your computer, and you sometimes slant the font? Oh yeah. Jill, what do you call that when you slant the font? Yeah, you get the italicized button, don't you? In scientific naming, we always italicize both the first and the last name.
Is that going to?
So, here we go. We always italicize. See, italicize is italicized. We italicize both the first and last name. Yes, Joe?
So does that mean, like, when we're writing out scientific names, you want us to write it on, like, cursive or something?
Basically, just make sure it's kind of tilted. And sometimes it's kind of hard. I know when I write in cursive, it's already naturally tilted. So to italicize it, just tilt it more. With a computer, it's easy to tell if it's italicized or not. Yes?
In the book, it actually said that if you're writing out something, it should be italicized, you underline it.
You can. You can underline it as well to kind of bring that fact out. Good point. Excellent. All right, so far we've covered 3 facts about scientific naming. But I told you there were 4, didn't I?
Yeah.
Who can handle the 4th one? Oh, you guys are doing still. This is
No.
honestly, this isn't that hard, is it?
Mm-mm.
So the fourth fact is, usually scientific names come from a root language. It's the language of the Roman Empire. It's the language that many languages come from. Everybody, what language would it be?
Latin.
Latin. You're Providence students. You guys are familiar with Latin. So, Latin is often used in scientific naming. All right, quite honestly, these four things about scientific naming are not very difficult, are they? In fact, what I'm going to ask you to do is discover the scientific name of 3 different organisms. How many of you guys think you can handle that?
No. Awesome.
Maybe.
All right. Now, you're not going to have a computer, but you will have your textbook. And on your textbook, on page 43, what page?
43.
On page 43, you see 6 species listed there, and they're classified for you.
Do we pick any of them?
So what you do is you pick, let's do these 3, so we're all working on the same one. So let's pick these 3 from page 43, and you write down in your notes their scientific name. We have the wild rose,
Alligator.
an American alligator, and the nasty bacteria found in the Old Testament,
That's fine.
leprosy.
Did you do like every other race? Or like down.
All right, so go ahead and on your own, in your notes, write down the scientific name of these 3 species: the wild rose, the American alligator, and the leprosy bacteria. All right, looks like you guys are doing stellar here. The nice thing is, everything is in front of your face. It's in the textbook, isn't it? You just have to put it in proper order. All right, so number 1, the wild rose. Who put that in proper scientific naming? Who would like to share that out? All right, right here in the front. Yes, sir.
Rosa Virginia.
Yes, Rosa, which is capitalized, right? And then Virginiana. Is Virginiana capitalized?
No.
No. Perfect. You correctly scientifically named it. Now, you will have to do this on your test as well. You'll be given the classifications, and then you have to put it in proper scientific naming order. All right, so number 2, how about the American alligator? Who can take that one for us? Yes, back there in the back.
Alligator Mississippianus.
Yes, alligator Mississippianus. Ooh, that's a mouthful, isn't it? Alligator is capitalized, the M is none. All right. And then the nasty leprosy bacteria spoken of in the Old Testament. Remember, people had leprosy and cried, leper, leper, unclean, stay away from me. Ah, right here.
Mycobacterium leprae.
Yes. So Mycobacterium, is that capitalized?
Yes.
Yes, it is. And leprae is?
Not capitalized.
Not. All right. How many of you guys think that's pretty easy? Awesome. You guys are doing very well. This is really not difficult. But let's move forward here and let's identify some problems in the naming system. In fact, to help identify some problems, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a little video snip. It's only about 5 minutes long.
Can we still classify these for a
Absolutely, you can continue classifying. It's only about 5 minutes. In the video, it's going to re-explain and talk about the classification system. But not only that, it's also going to give you some clues about some of the problems
Do we need to take notes?
in the classification system.
Do you want us to take notes?
No, you don't have to take notes. All right, so here is the video. Let me enlarge it so you can see it better. Hopefully my sound comes through and works great. Hopefully. All right, here we go.
Imagine the places we'll go.
Oh, look at there, we get a nice advertisement for YouTube.
So lay it down.
A drone fly, buzzing from flower to flower. This little insect is a honeybee mimic. pretending to be harmful when it's not. This particular species is known by its binomial name, Erystalis tenax. But what does this mean? What's a binomial name? All will be revealed. In this episode, we'll be exploring biological classification. Biological classification is a form of scientific taxonomy. As we've learnt in Phil's Insect Orders episode, taxonomy is simply a way of putting things into categories. Biological classification is how scientists categorize all living things, from bison to bacteria. The man who came up with it all was Carl Linnaeus, who came up with a system of categorizing the natural world based on shared characteristics. Most importantly, he came up with something called the Latin binomial system, a two-worded system used
The
today
Latin
to give a
binomial
unique scientific
is made of
name
Latin
to
and
every
pi
known
equals 2, right?
species.
So two
We'll
Latin
come back
words.
to that in a little bit. His ranking system was much improved by Charles Darwin's principle of common descent and the onset of modern cladistics. Instead of organisms being grouped purely on shared characteristics, they were now grouped according to evolutionary relatedness, using evidence from multiple fields. So what are the ranks that Linnaeus came up with? Well, let's go back to our drone fly. We'll start with the species, Erystalis tenax. This is the Latin binomial name and is unique to this species. Tenax is a species name given to only that specific type of drone fly. Erystalis is the name of the genus. There are 9 other species of drone fly in Britain that share this genus, all of which are closely related. All members of this genus are found in the family Cervidae, the hoverflies. Hoverflies belong to the order Diptera, the tree flies. Flies are insects, and insects are part of the phylum Arthropoda. Animals with an external skeleton, segmented body, and appendages, like crustaceans, arachnids, and centipedes. Ultimately, the dronefly is part of the animal kingdom and is a eukaryote, an organism whose cells contain a nucleus. So these are the general taxonomic ranks. You can remember them using this helpful mnemonic. Do koalas prefer chocolate or fruit, generally speaking? But sometimes extra ranks are needed to classify a distinctive group within a taxon, making things a teeny tiny bit more complicated. In the case of the dronefly, all British Erystalis species and another 18 British dronefly species fall into the tribe Erystalini. The hoverfly family in Britain contains another 11 tribes. Okay, let's look at a more familiar example. A fellow mammal, the jaguar. Its Latin binomial name is Panthera onca. The genus Panthera is shared by other big cats, like the lion, leopard, and tiger.
I was wrong. It's leopard.
Big cats are part of the cat family, Felidae. And Felidae is part of the order Carnivora, which includes creatures like dogs, seals, and bears. Carnivora is a mammalian order, and mammals are part of the order Chordata. Other chordata classes include our feathered backbone relatives, the birds, and the aquatic jawless fish. Again, we can add intermediate ranks. In the case of the jaguar, we get subspecies. Jaguar populations differ morphologically and genetically because of isolation and their subsequent adaptations. Jaguars have 8 recognized subspecies. So why not just call it a jaguar? Well, jaguar is its common name, but common names can differ from country to country or even within regions within a country. For example, this plant is called cleavers, sticky bud, or even goosegrass, depending on what part of the UK you're from. Sometimes 2 different species can share the same common name. In Europe, Erythicus rebecula is called the robin. In North America, Turdus migratorius is also called the robin. The Latin binomial name makes things far less confusing. It's unique to the species and is the same in every country and every language. It's universal. But remember, the Latin binomial name is not just a label. It also implies biological relationships, specifically evolutionary ones. So hopefully that shed a bit more light on how biologists categorize life. We've got specific videos on orders and families, and if you want to see those, click here. In the meantime, catch you later.
All right, was that interesting? Did he bring out some good things about scientific naming? It helped us identify different organisms, right? But he also brought out some of the problems. Did anyone catch or identify a problem? Yes, Jill?
So I noticed when he was classifying like mammals, it showed pictures of human, and from a Christian point of view, they're not animals, so we're not classified as mammals, so that, I guess, is, and from an evolutional point of view,
Right.
they're classifying mammals.
So he included us as mammals, right? And specifically animals. Scientifically, we have that classification, but there's also a big assumption there. Are we truly an animal? Some evolutionary scientists would say we evolved from animals. Ooh, did you hear the word evolution a lot in there? Did you hear the term relationships? He said our distant relatives, the birds. Okay. He had some good science in there, but he also had some bad worldview, didn't he? So you can see that worldview of evolution does creep in to our taxonomy naming system. So sorry, that's some bad news, isn't it? So let's identify some bad news about taxonomy. First of all, we're going to identify three, okay? The first one is this. There are, quite honestly, uncertainties when we classify organisms. And he gave me the example of the fly at the beginning, right? And they finally got that kind of figured out, get it classified correctly. But here are some common everyday uncertainties in classifying. We have here the zebra. The zebra can have a baby with a horse. In fact, that's what you see. You see a zorse. So this colt is half horse and half a zebra. Now, scientifically, does the zebra get its own scientific name?
Yes.
It does. Does the horse also get its own scientific name?
Yes.
Oh. So in the taxonomical naming system, they both get their own different names, but yet they can have babies, right? Here's another one for you. Here in this picture we have two dogs. One's teeny tiny, it's like a little teacup chihuahua. Now, it's a dog. It would have the scientific name of a dog, right? But look at the St. Bernard. This St. Bernard is huge. It could like swallow the teacup in one bite. Is it a dog?
Yes.
Both have the same scientific name, but they cannot reproduce. Those two specific dogs cannot have puppies. So do you see how there are some uncertainties here, aren't there? So some things don't always get explained well in our classification system. Really, I think it's because God made our world so diverse and so cool that it doesn't always fit into our little box. Now, you see here, the question is, are these the same species or not?
Yes.
Well, dogs are the same species. Are zebras and horses the same species? So continuing along this line. So number one, there are uncertainties in classification. Here's another example. Same thing, uncertainties in classifying. So we have a horse and we have a donkey. Both have different scientific names, but yet they can reproduce and have babies. A horse plus a donkey will give us a mule. Now here's how scientists have attempted to solve that. when you see the classification here, you have all of this, and then down at species, you have the scientific name of the horse and the scientific name of the donkey together. So you see here, scientists have tried to kind of fix the problem, haven't they? But not everything fits in just exactly correct. Now the video really brought out this next problem. Problem number 2. Unfortunately, scientific naming can often have some really bad false conclusions. A lot of times, some scientists assume that we've all evolved. So in other words, we started from one little cell that's evolved into every type of species out there today. Your book brings that out. It gives you the example of this wolf-like creature that scientists say evolved and turned into a whale. Well, so that evolutionary approach is unfortunately in our taxonomy system, isn't it? So do we all indeed have common ancestors? Well, we know that God made us unique. We know that God made each species. But unfortunately, sometimes we get non-biblical worldviews mixed in with the taxonomy system. So you could see that in the video, couldn't you? Yeah. All right, so far, how many problems have we identified with our taxonomy system? 2. How many did I say we're going to get to? 3. All right, so there's one more. The next picture, I'm just going to share a picture with you. It's a picture of what some scientists say is our family tree. They say we all evolved from one little cell that turned into all these different things. And it would look like this if it were factual. So they would say we started as one little cell, it evolved and changed all these little things, and eventually mankind comes out of that. Our closest relatives are the monkeys. So, now,
How can a human turn into a monkey?
if you look at our scientific naming system, our classification is very close to the monkeys. So, unfortunately, you can see that the taxonomy system, it does include some improper worldview, doesn't it? Yes, Jim?
Yeah, I just want the worm, guys.
This tree of life, is it suggesting that we evolve, like, let's say I evolved from one cell and then that cell into like something else and then,
Yeah.
wouldn't that take like, don't they suggest that takes?
Yeah,
something
they believe the Earth is billions and billions and billions of years old, and through those billions and billions of years, this happened. So, obviously, that's a worldview.
So they just think evolution stopped?
They think it stopped with us, and we're the superior, we're the best thing out there. And,
Why would this guy
um,
Okay, so
Why would it stop?
So-
I mean, besides God, we're the best thing.
so what about all the animals out in the world
so,
right now?
am I going to try to promote this in our science class?
Aren't they evolved?
No, no.
Like,
So obviously we're pointing out this is a problem. Here's the third thing you guys need to know. You see, what's the difference between a species and a biblical kind? A species is one specific type of organism, right? We know there's a big difference between this dolphin and this cow. I wish I could see that one
I
there.
want that as my background.
I don't think that happened. So what we need to do is define what is a biblical kind. What does God say in His Word? Because scientists, we try to look at species and look at different organisms, but God says that certain organisms can reproduce after their own kind. So in your notes, let's add a definition for a biblical kind. And God uses this word, or these two words, over and over throughout Scripture. That the animals reproduce after their own kind. The plants reproduce after their own kind. He keeps using these words. So let's see what it means. A biblical kind is this. Let's add this into our notes. Now, as soon as you get it added into your notes, you may quietly pack it up and head out, but on your way out, you do have homework. You have to do your 2C quiz. And those of you learning online, you can find this in our Google Classroom account. You can use your notebook to help you answer these questions. You can use your textbook to help you answer these questions. So please use your resources to do well on this quiz. Even though it's a quiz, you can still use your book and your notes. Now on the back side of this homework, it's blank, but I'm going to ask you to classify another organism. You classified your favorite animal first, didn't you? Pick any other organism, animal, plant, bacteria, whatever, and classify it on the back side. My apologies, I took you right up to the bell, but on your way out, pick up your homework, please.